strong, bulky, agile, competitive, fast. When I tell you those words, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Yes, these are the traits of an athlete, but not the traits of a woman, as framed by the expectations of our society today. When I was a kid and our family traveled to Maldives, I would watch the coming waves on the golden beach and dream about reaching out far into the ocean. But unfortunately, I was too young to even step into the water. As I made my way into 4th grade, our school founded our first ever swim team, and I joined without any hesitation. At that time, our entire team consisted of only 4 people. When we went to other schools to compete, we were like sluggish minnows among sprinting sharks. As the 4 of us trained harder and won more races, our achievements attracted more girls into joining the swim team, and more people to join the swim team. However, I couldn't help but notice that so little girls shared my passion. Oftentimes, I was the only girl surrounded with boys in the swim pool, and thought that was a little strange. Why were there so less girls in the pool? And it wasn't just swimming, but in every sport that I was involved in, like soccer or basketball. The boys vastly outnumbered the girls. I'm Wendi, and today I will talk to you about the societal issue of women in sports. Data has shown that in the United States, 61.6% of athletes are consisted of men, while only 38.4% are women. The number of male athletes doubled that of the female athletes. Why is that the case? Why is the difference almost 30%? Well, the first reason is the most obvious. Most people would argue that men are built biologically differently than women. Therefore, men are more capable of doing sports and thus should pursue it more, since they're just naturally built for it. However, is this really the case? According to Kara Ackelbach, a PhD of human biology at the University of Notre Dame, women tend to have a higher proportion of slow twitch muscle fibers, which are less powerful but are more fatigue resistant. Conversely, men have more fast twitch fibers, which produce bursts of strength but fatigue very quickly. This suggests that women are actually biologically more suited for endurance sports like swimming, cycling, or long-distance running. Some people may still argue that men are still outcompeting them in these long-distance events. Although that is the case, it is changing. In 2019, Jasmine Paris came first in the Montagne Spine Race, which is a 260-mile run from England to Scotland, while still breastfeeding her child. Now that I've proven to you that men are actually not as biologically advantageous than we previously thought, what then is holding women from pursuing sports? The underlying factor is the cultural factor. You run like a girl. Sports are for boys. Boys are more competitive than girls. I'm sure these phrases sound familiar to you, and I've heard them quite a few times throughout my lifetime as well. Historically, until this day, sports are defined, constructed, organized, and promoted by men. And this is closely linked with our patriarchal history. Sports have always been male-dominated, with men competing in these competitive activities while women are often excluded and discouraged from doing so. In fact, the Olympics did not even include women in the Olympics until later in the 1900s. Therefore, sports are often associated with masculinity, which further reinforces the stereotype. Let me give you a few examples. Out of all the boys you know, how many of them do ballet or gymnastics? And out of all the girls you know, how many of them do basketball and soccer? The stereotype of gender in sports has existed for so long and so engraved into our heads that it comes out to be unconscious of us. As a result, according to Women in Sport, 75% of girls have experienced disparaging statements about girls in sports from peers and teachers. Girls who have explored their passion in sports, girls who have wished to involve themselves in the sports industry, are barred from the entry line. There are approximately 0.6 billion girls in China, and it's hard to imagine that even 1% of their families would encourage their daughters to pursue in sports. Girls and basketball, those words just don't seem to go together. There are so many girls who are forced to give up on their passion just because they are told that they're not suited for doing that. This also causes the gender pay gap in sports. Female athletes often experience a decrease in salaries, prize money, and sponsorship deals compared to male athletes competing at similar levels. In the 2015 season, the maximum salary of a WNBA player was $110,000. For an NBA player, however, the minimum salary was $525,000. In other words, the lowest NBA player earned 5 times higher than that of the highest WNBA player. Isn't that absurd? Likewise, in the same year, the United States Women's World Cup team won $2 million for winning the World Cup, while the winners of the Men's World Cup took home $35 million. The pay gap is unbelievable. Do you see a vicious cycle here? Due to a lack of female athletes in the field, there comes a lack of funding because these games are not competitive enough. And due to lack of funding, female athletes are extremely underpaid. And since they're extremely underpaid, young girls are discouraged from doing sports. So what can we do about it? Well, for starters, we should encourage more young girls into pursuing sports at an early age. My achievements today would not have been possible without my encouraging father. At the age of 4, my dad taught me how to ride a bike. Yep, that chubby little kid is me. And at the age of 5, my dad brought me to swimming lessons and swam with me whenever he had time. At the age of 6, my dad always took me biking. We biked on the lakesides of Qingdao and on the mountains of Thailand and on the highways of Xinjiang. As I got older, he was the one who encouraged me to join the soccer team. The exposure and encouragement of girls is not merely for the goal to learn one specific sport, but to develop the girl's passion for a lifetime. In my case, this led me to learn more sports as well as achievements in them. After developing their passion in sports, we need to keep them passionate and prevent them from quitting. This can be creating an inclusive environment for them where they're exposed to female role models. Role models are the best way of education. Seeing other women excel at sports can motivate more girls to continue their athletic pursuits. You might be thinking, well, how can we get access to these role models? This leads to my final solution, which is the main issue inherently is still a lack of funding in the women's sports industry. More funding in the field would not only increase the wages of these female athletes, but also increase their opportunities and thus make them thrive in sports. More specifically, private fundings like nonprofit organizations should be promoted because so far this is the most optimal way to increase fundings in the women's sports industry. For example, Women's Sports Foundation is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1974 by Billie Jean King, which was one of the best tennis players of all time. Its mission is to enable all girls and women to reach their full potential in sports. They are dedicated to creating leaders of the next generation by ensuring all girls the access to sports. Our society should promote NPOs like this one by donations and further support, because it is organizations like this that takes us a step closer to true equality. As G.D. Anderson once said, feminism isn't about making women strong. Women are already strong. It's about changing the way our world perceives that strength. It is our time to prove to the world that girls are just as capable of doing sports than boys are. Next time someone tells you that you run like a girl, tell them that if they ran a little faster, they could too. Thank you.